Welcome back, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. Today, I would love to welcome Colin Kingsmill. He believes that we have lost touch with our shared humanity and have become distracted by division, identity, politics, negative news cycles, corporate and special interest greed, and other forces that crush our souls and keep us from being healthy and thriving. He's on a
Mm.
mission to help people rediscover their humanity, live in integrity, be fearless. I love this. Become free from suffering that is holding them down. Welcome to A Little Less Fear podcast, Colin. So nice to see you.
Good to see you again, my friend. Hi, it's great to be
I
here.
know it really
Thank you for.
is.
I've been looking forward to it for a while because we've been going back and forth, and we had a couple of conversations. So this is great. It's great to be back. I'm thrilled.
It really is. So just for people to get an understanding of my connection here with Colin. So
Mm.
we first connected about 6 months ago, and at the time I was going through a breakup. And in this breakup that I was processing, I was feeling like I was undeserving, unloving, and I felt like I had a lot of abandonment issues. So this is what Colin's bread and butter is. He helps people release their fears and their doubt. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to be open and honest with him. And he said, hey, let's try to do this. Let's see if I can help you out, basically, in other words. And I said, yeah, you know what, I'm willing to be raw and real on my show. However, raw and real got a little too raw and real. And I realized at the end of after recording that show that maybe it was just a little bit too much to share personally, because I brought up a lot of my past, and without disclosing names, I really didn't feel that it was the right thing to do, to expose people out of confidentiality. And so, to protect people's identities, I decided to not release that episode. But Colin and I stayed in touch, and the wonderful thing that Colin didn't know he did is that he planted seeds and opened up a part of me that I hadn't seen before. A window of opportunity is what he gave me. And that window of opportunity was for me to see that I am worth it, and that I am deserving, and that I am loving. And now I'm in a beautiful relationship for the last 6 months. And I know he helped to pave the way. And that's why I'm so happy to bring him back. Colin, welcome to A Little Less Fear.
It's good to be back. And just one caveat: our power has gone out today. We had a snowstorm and a hailstorm. So if I
Oh,
disappear, it
what?
has nothing to do with you. I'll jump on my phone and I'll come back.
Okay.
Just wanted to let you know that I forgot to tell you that before. Anyway,
Okay,
that's
great.
it.
Well, hopefully that won't happen. This connection is
Yeah.
really, really incredible, Colin. So tell us about your journey to where
Mm,
you are at today, in a
sure.
nutshell. Yeah.
In a nutshell, I've had three chapters in my life so far. The first chapter was I was completely unaware and unawake, I guess, striving for all the markers of success. And that lasted till about I was 35. And then I hit a wall and it all came crashing down. And we can get into the details of that. And I went into the second chapter of my life has been or was, I call it shelf development, right? Where I realized that everything, all of those markers of success and striving for success and everything brought me to a point of utter despair and desperation, notwithstanding having by all sort of standards a pretty fabulous life, right? But I decided to go back to the west coast of Vancouver and start over and learn everything that I hadn't learned before, right? Like rediscover what it means to be whole, to be successful, to be fulfilled, and things like that. So I spent 20 years learning and reading. I mean, every book over here and over there and upstairs and downstairs. There's one. My house is full of books. Um, I I call that era shelf development and not self development
Ooh, I love that.
because I read everything and I knew the contents, but I never embodied it.
Ooh, yeah.
Okay. So in this third chapter of my life, which God, I'm over 50, so it's taken a while. I'm I a couple of years ago I got this gift of letters that were written from my mother to her best friend. I was never supposed to receive them, but they were from when I was a child. And
Wow.
all of this small t trauma came rushing back. It was like being hit by a train. Okay. But it was awful for like a few days. And then I was like, it's a gift. I realized that I had been living my whole life through these opaque lenses, right? That we've spoken about before. I didn't see clearly because I was, compensating for this sort of core wound of unworthiness. And I did a little bit of therapy, I did a little bit of coaching, I did a little bit of reading, I did a little bit of, self exploration, and I I exorcised that trauma from my body. And now, chapter 3, I don't know how many more chapters it will be, but chapter 3, Lino, I was like, now I know what my purpose is. Now I know why I'm here. The shelf development all of a sudden went from the shelves to like totally internalized. It was just like, oh, now it all made sense. And so now I've got this clarity. And, I'm, like you said, I'm on this mission. I started writing this book called Fear Less a few years ago, but it kind of expanded. I'm like, well, how do we get to fear? And I'm like, well, we get there because humanity is not connected to who we are. And why is that? Well, we're not living in integrity with who we are. And then the fear is all this sort of bombardment from society. And so I've created this idea of a personal protection system, which we can talk about later. But and I'm like, well, if you can become fearless, then you can become free from the psychological suffering that occurs to so many people of all ages in our world today. So, yeah, that's my journey in a nutshell.
That's an incredible
chapter
journey.
chapter 3.
So you're currently in
Um,
chapter 3 of your life, is how
I'm in
you
chapter 3.
you're within chapter 3 at the moment.
I just started it a few years ago. Yeah, and it just keeps getting more and more delicious because
Love this.
when you discover your ultimate purpose, you just want to be of service. And so I started podcasting, as you know, about a year ago, maybe a little bit more, and I've been on 50 podcasts, and I found my, how I've been in communications and marketing for 20 plus years, but it, all of this social media and getting out there, and it just was never resonating for me personally. But podcasting and having conversations, and like you said before, I think before we started recording, if you can start to plant the seeds
Yeah.
for creating this movement of change
Right.
and humanity, um, God, it's just so fun. I love podcasting. I love having conversations. I love meeting people like you. And so that's what I'm doing in chapter 3. We'll see who knows what chapter 4 will be like, but doesn't matter.
Well,
I'm not thinking about that.
I'm very blessed to meet you here at chapter 3. I would have loved to meet you in all chapters, but the fact that we're meeting at chapter 3 perhaps means that I might be in a similar chapter. So let's welcome each other's
Right.
alignment here. This is really beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally
So
welcome
you said a
with open
bunch of
arms.
incredible stuff here. You were talking about the when you first started talking about your chapters, you said you were first. Let's start with you. The first thing you said was you were unawake. You were not awake. What does awake mean? What does it mean to wake up?
Well, I think for me, it means to realize that your self-worth and your sense of self and who you are and who you need to be has nothing to do with anything external.
Hmm.
Okay. So for the first 35 years of my life, I needed validation from everything external. So, I did my undergraduate, I did a triple major, then I moved to Switzerland, then I got into Swiss banking, then I went to Milan and I got an MBA, and I set up my own financial services company, and I had 25 employees, and I had all the cars I wanted and all the travel and blah blah blah, all the stuff, right?
Yeah,
The
the stuff that like
list.
checklist.
Check, 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 check,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, I've been in George Clooney's villa on Lake Como. I've met like it was just surreal, but I was so empty. So you probably wouldn't have wanted to meet me then because I was just this obnoxious, mm, driven, like, go for dinner in Milan, meet Giorgio Armani at his new Nobu restaurant, and just like insane stuff. But I hit a wall one day. It was April 6th, 2001. And all just stopped because it was all so wrong. I mean, the retail therapy, the shopping, the thank God I didn't know anything about drugs back then because I would have probably overdosed, right? But I I was seeking I was seeking fabulous, right? Outside of this. And I totally depleted myself. And that weekend in 2001, I hit the wall. I said, oh, well, this is all wrong. And I gave everything away. And I left Europe and left Switzerland. And I did like this, when you're wearing a big cloak and it's heavy,
Yes.
I just shed it. I gave all my clothes away. I gave all my Italian clothes away. I brought my cars back to the dealership. I gave, you know, Cartier watches to my housekeeper. It was like this, what, like when an organ transplant gets rejected, that was me. It was just like total rejection. So I forget what the question was, but
Oh yeah, well the
that
question
was
is
chapter one.
so yeah, you
And
were unawake and I was wondering the
I
process of becoming awake and you're basically telling me the process.
so in my process was hitting a wall and somehow waking up and realizing, I mean, I had a spiritual experience that we can get into if you want, but
I'd love to get
um
into it. Yeah, definitely.
my friends saw that I was such a ball of stress and nerves and ambition. They're like, you're 30 and you are 32 or whatever, you are going to kill yourself, you're going to have a heart attack. So they brought me to something called, they said it was called rebirthing. And it's basically bringing your breath back to when before you were in the womb. And I'm like, I had no idea what this stuff was. I'm like, oh my God, all right. Like, can't we
Birthing,
go
this is
for
incredible.
I'm like, can't we just go for drinks? And they're and so what it turned into, Lena, was a past life regression.
Oh, I love this.
And it was so she's doing this breathing technique, and I'm like, and then all of a sudden I saw all of these stories with me in them from different eras in time. And I was describing them to the practitioner.
Uh-huh.
And she said, so at the end of it, I like it finished, and she said, well, here you go. That wasn't rebirthing. That was some kind of past life regression experience. And these are all the notes I took. So I sped my Audi TT to my psychiatrist.
Oh,
And I'm like, what just happened? And because he was a historian and a Buddhist monk and a Swiss military fighter jet pilot, he was kind of eclectic, right? But he knew, like, because of the detail that I described, he knew exactly where those places were, and they were obscure. There's like, oh, he's like, well, that's an ancient trading route between Morocco and
wow.
somewhere else, and because of the architecture of the building and the color of the buildings. And he says, well, that's southern Italy. It's not England or Elizabethan England because of the seal and the stamp that you were describing. And well, that's not that. And so so in the morning, I had this unexpected past life regression, and that was after I had spun a car out in the mountains. That was why I did the rebirthing, because I spun my car out and I could have landed in the lake or the ditch. And that was when my friends were like, all right, we're going to take control of you. And at the end of the day, from the past life regression to the psychiatrist, I just said, oh, well, I woke up and I said, I don't need to do everything right now in this lifetime.
Yeah.
We're actually energy. We're here forever, and there's no timeline. So I just sat back and I relaxed and I said, well, I can't swear on the show, right? I'm like,
Yes, sure you can. Of
I'm
course you
like,
can.
fuck that shit. right? And that's when I took the cloak off, and like you can have all that, it's meaningless. So that was my waking up to the fact that that life of materiality, that life of striving for success, the life of external success markers was meaningless. And that's when within 30 days or something, I moved to Vancouver, British Columbia, and started
This is
learning,
incredible, Colin.
learning about, Eckhart Tolle was just releasing The Power of Now. So I went to the bookstore, and the spiritual bookstore. You know how in the bookstore they have all the books right in the center, right? And these are
Yeah.
all the new books. I think I bought every one of them, right? Like Joe Dispenza and
Yeah.
manifestation and the power of law of attractions and self-development stuff. And I just started diving in and relearning everything.
What a what a beautiful, motivating, incredible story. I really love how you became awakened into, I mean, this was the path towards your purpose in
Yep.
shedding your old selves from your past lives and bringing you into
Yep.
your new current body, this current self, and how
Yep.
all of those lives are being intertwined into your current life, which is why you were
Mm,
all over the place because you were kind of combining all of those lives that you live into this current life and trying to make sense of it. And because of that,
mhm.
you were going full force and full speed ahead without really slowing down and saying, hang on a minute, but what is this life all about? That's really incredible. You're able to
Yeah.
shed all that.
Yeah. Yes. It was like shedding a cloak or a coat. And so I spent about 20 years rediscovering, learning, really relearning, right? What they don't teach you in school.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. They don't teach you this in school. And so
No.
then, so that was your chapter one, becoming becoming awakened. And then chapter two, you were discovering what it meant to be whole.
Yeah, because like when your whole living and your whole life was based on uh, external things, and you realize that none of that has any meaning, I had to start from scratch. It was like being a child again, right? So I really just I got into a totally different industry. I got into because I was in financial services before, and I felt as though I wanted something more tangible, more real. And I always loved architecture, and I loved building things. And I got into international real estate development, and that was amazing because it was all about creating places out of nothing, and creating places where people could, well, interesting, creating creating places where people could create memories and create connection and create community and human contact.
Sure.
Um, and build places out of nothing. So I did that for 20 plus years. Yeah. And I loved it. It was amazing. And it's interesting, in the process of not striving or not seeking fabulous, that's when the most sort of incredible things happened, because when you're kind of in flow and not when you're not striving for that thing,
Yes.
your energy is different, and you can attract you attract different things when you're on a different frequency, right? In the past, in that chapter one, I was on a frequency of lack, right?
Yes.
My radio station was tuned to lack. I'm not enough. I need to
Yeah.
demonstrate. I'm unworthy. If I do this and this, I will be worthy, right? In chapter two, it was like, well, I am worthy, and I'm learning how to be whole. And so my energy started to elevate. And when I wasn't striving for all those things, all these incredible experiences happened. So I've lived and worked and played and experienced stuff all around the world in this kind of exploration and play with being fearless and saying yes to opportunities and possibilities where I had no idea what the outcome might be. Right.
Right.
I'm like, well, it's almost like, it's almost like, in chapter one, like I was really in control. And chapter 2, I'm like, well, just say yes to the dress, like see what happens, right?
Sure. Yeah.
As opposed to being so in control. And that's when, that's when the incredible can happen.
Yeah.
And it certainly did for me.
As you're
Um,
saying this, when you're talking about being in control, when somebody is in control or thinks they are in some control, that's actually out of control. And and actuality, control and what is in alignment is chaos, because chaos is bringing what you think is should be controlled out of that alignment, out of that resistance, out of that restraint. And in that comes the alignment of the way it's supposed to be, with when flow is taking part in its natural rhythm when you finally let go. And that's what you
mm,
did.
yes, I
And
let
something
go.
that else that's interesting here is that what you did in chapter 2 of your life, and recreating and finding wholeness for those 20 years, something that
Hmm.
you said that was really important that you pointed out was you were connecting people. And while you're
Hmm.
connecting people, you're finding your wholeness. Well, what's even
Hmm.
more interesting is right now that you are in chapter 3, that's exactly what you're still doing, connecting people, except now you found your life purpose. So in that foundation of connecting people, that's how you came into realignment, to reconnecting with your inner being.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I hadn't thought about it that way, but what happened in chapter 3 is really a continuation of what I was doing, but that's when I shed the narratives and the stories of small t trauma that I hadn't recognized even. And it was like a Christmas present, you know, kind of waking up and going, oh wait,
Yeah.
I I have been, notwithstanding all the shelf development, right? I I've been learning and growing and expanding, and it's been fascinating. And I did this. I woke up at 4 a.m. this morning with this inventory of my life, going, holy cow! But 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 when you shed the stories and the narratives that whether you know it or not have been holding you down and
Yeah.
back, and you remove those opaque lenses, it feels like, a little bit like Alice in Wonderland. It's like, oh wait, oh hold on, I can
Yeah.
see clearly now,
Yeah.
right? And now that I can see clearly, I can connect all the dots, and the connection of all the dots of my experience over 50 plus years is now, oh wait, I can be a guide or shed light on people's situations and scenarios who might be in the same place I was, so they can get there faster.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
it's like, and a lot of times I say to people, it doesn't have to be like this. And what I mean is, you do not have to stay in that loop of psychological suffering,
Right.
the repeated loop of storytelling and opacity, and
Yeah.
yeah.
People are
Anyway.
in that repeated loop, that storytelling, because they believe what they just they believe their story so hard, and they keep that
Mhm.
narrative alive that it starts to take control of their life and their health as well, creating disease and disharmony. And when you are able to shed those opaque lenses, as you just defined, you are then able to reclaim your life, reclaim your identity as a human, as a soul,
Mhm.
as pure consciousness, as light, as love, and you're able to
Yeah.
radiate that on to others. And that's the most
Yeah.
beautiful, incredible alignment to
Yes.
get your hands on. I really love this. This is
Well,
incredible.
it's better than any drug, right?
Yeah, sure is.
it's like, I mean, I can feel your energy right now. I'm like buzzing, and it's like, well, nothing I can get at the pharmacy does
Yeah,
this, right? It's
right.
like, or elsewhere, right? If you, but it it's it's our birthright to feel and be full of that love and joy and light. And that's why I say, that's why I start with, let's rediscover our humanity. because if you think about it, if the humans that were are running sort of big food, right,
Yeah.
that is not serving us, if we could just if they could just remember that they're humans and we're humans, and the food is meant to nourish us, not to deplete us, or big pharma, or big banking, which keeps people in debt, and big all this all this stuff. If we could just remember, we're a speck of dust in a galaxy we know nothing about, spinning around at 1,600 kilometers an hour on our axis. And from up there, there's no borders, there's no skin colors, we're all one lineage, ultimately.
Yes, we are.
If you go back to the core.
Yeah.
Um, so what would that mean if we all remembered that we're one humanity on this little rock?
What would that mean?
Think about that. Yeah. I mean, I said that on X the other day, and somebody was like, "Oh, that John Lennon song, I
Imagine.
forget which one. Imagine." And then I thought of that Coca-Cola commercial too from the '70s. If life could be, but I don't care. Um, I'm like, let's just keep imagining.
Definitely. Well, what you imagine, you create. So if you keep
Right.
imagining, you're going to eventually create it.
Yeah. So that's my movement. It's like, let's imagine it and create it and make it happen.
Well, if you can imagine it, it's already created. It's just basically allowing it in. And by
Right.
allowing it in, you then are able to remove those lenses that have been filtering your authenticity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree.
So, Colin, how do you help
Yeah.
people bring them back to their humanity? Or, I mean,
Yeah.
my mind I know I just asked you this question, but in the back of my mind, I'm still thinking of the word wholeness, wholeness, wholeness. It's like repeating in my head. So, and I can imagine that that's part of how you help people. You help people become their whole self. Is this true?
Yeah. I mean, we live in a world, uh, especially now in the last 20 years, where because of social media, we are led to believe that that you need this, or you need that, or you need to be like this or be like that, or buy this or have that, or look like this or whatever. There's so many external forces convincing us that we are not whole, that if you don't feel quite right, well, here's a pill for that, right?
Right.
Here's a pill for depression, here's a pill for anti-anxiety, here's a pill for ADHD. All of these things, we have been fed, I think, this kind of junk food existence,
Yeah.
where we get told that we're not good enough, that we're not bright enough, that we're not, and to me that's just wrong. And and what happens, it depletes you, right? As it depleted me, it depletes you and it breaks you down, and you start to believing all of these stories, right, in your head. So they create a conditioning through which you live life, and you see life through those lenses. So when I say be whole again, I'm like, let's break down those stories. Let's see what's serving you. Let's Because some things might, maybe, right, be serving you from the past. Okay, let's put them in the toolkit for tomorrow. But a lot of it is not. So the for me, the way to become whole again is to start to break down the stories that you've that have been created, or that you created, or that came into you over time, throughout your life, and go back to that, innocent moment, right?
Yeah.
When you arrived, and life was full of possibilities and opportunities, um, and you were untethered, and then life got in the way and tethered you and brought you down and kept you down.
Speaking of that
And
moment when you first arrived right now,
mm,
what I felt into that, and one of the first things that you brought up in the beginning of this interview was being fearless.
mhm.
And when we're first brought into this world, we are fearless.
Right.
We're fearless at that moment.
Yeah.
And talk
Yes.
about being brave.
Right. Right. So what got in the way? What
Social
gets in the way?
constructs, past life integrations,
Yeah.
society, environments, false beliefs,
Trauma.
schemas. Yeah, it just keeps adding and piling up. And so then it's just kind of taking all those piles off your back, off your shoulders, off your body, and clearing the
Yeah.
path ahead, plowing through it, and really seeing
Yes.
the divinity within us all.
But what's important to what you said is you taking it off, right? Taking off all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because at that core is your divinity and your perfection and your wholeness.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not about reconstructing, right? Well, maybe it's deconstruct the old stories to reconstruct the new narratives that you want, but based on that wholeness, that innocence, that clarity, that whole you, right? So that word that you chose of taking it off, I think is so important because it has nothing to do. We're not saying that you aren't already whole. We're saying that there's masks and barriers
Right.
and walls and like you say all that stuff you just mentioned. Well, no wonder we have an epidemic of, mental illness and loneliness and obesity and all this stuff going on, both in the United States and Canada and other Western wealthy First Nations, right, or industrialized places. So yeah, time to shed all that
And in
shit.
shedding all that, all it really is, it's energy. It's energy
Yes,
that's not serving us. So whether,
that's right.
as you said, right, whether it's obesity or whatever, all that is, weight or anything like that, it's just energy.
Yeah, oh yeah,
And that's because of these beliefs that we've adopted and we've adopted for our own, that we've fostered, and which doesn't serve us at all. I mean, not our aura, not our energy whatsoever,
no,
because our pure divine light is weightless.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, that you know that's why I was saying to you earlier, if you can go through this sort of process of rediscovering who you really are, right? And we do this in our coaching business. It's like remember who you are and remember who you will be. And it's like, oh, right. Okay. Um, but you're totally right. It's about becoming untethered from all that stuff. And if you don't, it does end up in dis-ease. And
Yes.
I don't mean necessarily sort of chronic disease or anything like that, but dis-ease is you not seeing your light, right? And Gabor Mate, gosh, how old is it? It's like 20 years old now, that book that he wrote called When the Body Says No, right?
Love this.
And his new book is called The Myth of Normal,
Ooh, I've
which
heard of this book.
it's amazing. It's 400 pages long. Uh, it's not you know it's not an easy fiction little piece to read on a Friday night, but it speaks to the fact that we have normalized addiction, pharmaceuticals, drugs, allowing people to be in addiction or on the streets or you know it's not normal. Our cortisol levels shouldn't be up here all the time,
Mm,
right? And so he speaks about things like small t trauma and larger traumas and things like that, and how they get embodied in the body. And that was his first. I think maybe it wasn't his first book, but When the Body Says No is beautiful. He's written several things since then, but the latest is The Myth of Normal. Um,
incredible.
it's great. I would highly recommend it to all of your audience
Thank
struggling
you. I
or thinking
appreciate
about
that.
these things.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, most definitely, if I mean the soul, the purity of our soul or spirit or our or divine energy, or pure energy, our innate light is really what resides deep within us. And if you don't shine that part of yourself, it does result in existential crisis and in disease. I know that right now we didn't specifically touch on diseases, but it does create diseases because all of these emotions get trapped in the body. And the body is
Hmm.
not releasing these other excess energies that don't belong to us. They never have
Hmm.
belonged to us. It
Yep.
has only one way to manifest, and that's through disease, and that's being out of ease.
Yeah.
And so that's why a lot of people are able to become well by releasing things that no longer serve them. They're able to shed that disease because now they're at ease.
Well, I mean, have you heard the story of Anita Morjani? I don't want to go off on a piece on a tangent here,
I
but
haven't, but I
Anita,
love tangents. Tell us.
well, check out the work of Anita Morjani,
Okay.
and she's of Indian descent and was riddled with cancer and in her deathbed, and something happened to her, and it might have been a near death experience. I can't remember, uh, but I think it is a near death experience. And she came out of it, and within 3 weeks, it was all gone, all the cancer. And so and she's on Instagram. She's this wonderful messenger about precisely what you just mentioned, that the retention of all that energy in the body can cause chronic disease. But like you say, um, you can shift that energy and begin a healing process.
Absolutely.
Hers is extraordinary because within 3 weeks, stage 4 cancer was gone. But even just even just elevating yourself out of depression or anxiety is a huge is huge,
It really is
right?
huge. And depression and anxiety, they're all fear based. So once you can
Yes.
actually start
Sure.
working through these internalized fears that we've adapted to or adopted and continue to pursue without our full awareness, it just creates more anxiety, more fears of things that really don't exist. We create the existence of it by constantly contemplating on them, and that's what creates the disharmony.
That's why mindfulness is so important, right? So
Sure is.
mindfulness through meditation, if you can begin a practice like that, what happens if you're not mindful is the thought comes in, the negative thought comes in, you accept it as reality, you believe it, and then you know that then they just keep coming in, and you begin to spiral downward because they just keep coming in, right? It's like those video games like Tetris. It just
Yeah, I was
keeps
just thinking that. I was
coming
saying
in, coming in,
Tetris.
right?
Yeah.
And so you keep going down and down and down, and your energy and your radio frequency just turns to minimal, and to fear and anger and grief, and not grief, but a fear and anger and jealousy and resentment and all those things, all the different permutations of fear, right? But with mindfulness, you can say, oh, the thought, or you can get to a point where the thought comes in, and you're like, oh, it's just a thought. I'm going to let it go out, right? Anyway.
It's just a thought, you can let it go out. Just like thoughts and feelings, they're all impermanent. They come and they go. They're like the flow of the ocean water coming to the shore and going back. And people can accept that these emotions come and go and not resist them and let them flow out of you, out through you. You accept it, you release it, and you actually don't put walls in front of it. You when you welcome it, you're actually inviting it in with love and releasing it with love.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And no judgment. It's a thought. And if you don't attach to it, then it can go as easily as it came.
It's interesting we're talking
But
about this. Yes,
sorry, no, I didn't mean to
not at
interrupt
all.
you. What are you going to
Go ahead.
say?
No, go
No,
ahead.
I was going to say that's why I have this like personal protection system, right? Because we live in the hyper novel, um, hyper complex, overstimulated world that we live in. It is super easy to stay in that place of depression and anxiety and fear and all
Yes,
those things, because it's a battleground,
it is a battleground.
and you've got to create you don't have to do anything, I say, but for me it's like, all right, how do we create almost a kryptonite right around
Yeah.
you to protect yourself from all of these forces that are just like
Yes.
incredible.
So go ahead. You're talking about the personal protection system.
Look, for me, it's all about, turning off the news and getting informed, right? So when I say turn off the news and get informed, it's really about turning off the news cycle, which is just a business, right? It's nothing, it's not meant to serve you. Turn off the news and get informed about the things that matter to you. So dive into the things that really matter to you, right? It's also about, you know, um, uh, uh, how should I say this? Creating resilience and confidence around where you're going and what you're doing and why you're doing it and how you're serving and how you're being of service, and not letting things get in the way, taking away the conditioning from the past. So I say, forget about everything you've learned, right? And I don't mean throw it all the baby out with the bathwater, but the conditioning that's no longer serving you, you get rid of it. Then, another thing to add to that sort of resilience and confidence thing is or the personal protection system is forget about what others think, right? If they're not contributing to your elevation,
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah.
And you know that might be hard, but it's kind of fundamental. And everybody's going to have their own system, right?
Yeah.
But just being aware that turning on CNN and having the news on for 3 hours a day is not serving you.
It's not, and I know a lot of people like that. It makes me feel really desperate, but the best I can do is really send them my loving energy from a distance and hope that they receive it
Yeah,
some way or somehow, and they're able to take it turn on a different channel.
exactly. Totally. Turn on a different channel or turn it all off and go and read a journal that interests you, right? And also, like, we get part of the sort of that personal protection system is also, we can get so down, right? If we I mean, especially right now, right? If you go to the Middle East or you go to South Central Europe, I mean, there's absolute devastation happening.
Yeah.
But I say to people when they're like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" and I'm going to go to protests and things like that. I say, is that are you serving the world by bringing your energy down, focused on those things that you can't impact, when you could walk outside your front door and recognize that there are people down the street that are in a soup kitchen or in a food bank lineup, or that are homeless or that are addicted on the streets, that you can make an impact? You remember that Michael Jackson song, Man in the Mirror, right?
Absolutely. I love that song.
Right? If you can start with you, and well, we spoke about it earlier, right? Planting the seeds and sending out the ripple effect. That's what you need to focus on, is what what is your radio station sending out to the world,
Exactly.
right? And that's how you change it. It's not by adding fuel to a fire that's already lit and burning.
Yeah, it doesn't get distinguished that way.
No, no, I don't think so.
Yeah. It just
But
it keeps it going. It keeps the momentum going, actually.
I think so. That's my theory anyway. Yeah.
I'm talking to the man in the mirror.
That's right. Yeah, I might have to go listen to that later.
Also, I heard the other Michael Jackson song as you said that I heard of Heal the World, Make It a Better Place.
Oh yeah. Yep. There's you're a better singer than me, so I won't start. But yeah, look, for however he ended his career, he certainly had a lot of good messages.
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
hey, tell us
Yeah.
about how clients come to you and how you start off. Let's say someone comes in a complete wreck, or they're
Hmm.
depressed, or they have high anxiety, and how you
Hmm.
even start to break down what matters to them, their value system, their core beliefs. How do you begin?
Well, really, for me, it's about identifying and doing an inventory of what's really there, right? So often, as you know, in the world, when we fear things, and then fear leads to depression and anxiety and all those other things, right? And overwhelmment, right? And burnout and all those things. Um, I try and start with an identification of what are we really talking about? And so often people will be fearful or full of anxiety for something that they haven't identified, right? Oh, I'm fearful of, I don't know, my financial situation. Oh, okay. It's causing me anxiety and stress, and I'm depressed about this. Well, what do you what would make you whole again? Where's this coming from? What is the number? And so often, people get into these states of mind without having a clear inventory of how they actually got there and where they actually want to go. So for me, it's about kind of doing not a mind map, but really an inventory of what does this mean?
I
What
actually
does it
love how
really
you
mean?
said mind map.
Right?
I love that. Doing a mind map.
So,
Yeah.
so, so it's really just, it's really, yeah, it's really just starting with an inventory of what does it mean to be in this state. And then once you've done an inventory and you've identified it, and you've quantified it, and you've qualified it, and recognized it,
Mm-hmm.
then we can begin to look at each element and see if it's true or not. Often it's not, right? See where it came from. Okay, do we want to explore the origin story or not? It is, to me, it's almost like, yeah, a chemical breakdown of the the fog, right? And that's really where I start is name it. What is it? And often people will be like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. Oh, well, so you're worried about money, but you don't know how much will alleviate that worry. Is it $1 million? Is it five? Is it 10? Is it, I don't know, but identify it, you know? So it's really about identifying what are you actually talking about? Because we have so many, how many thoughts do we have a day? Like 35,000 or something, or 70,000?
Wild.
I forget
Yeah.
the number. But,
And
but,
how many of those thoughts are false beliefs?
oh, right.
Wow.
So to me, it's about naming, identifying, breaking it down, analyzing it, deconstructing the stories, and then with a blank slate, begin to reconstruct new ones. So that's really how I work. Deconstruct to reconstruct is my thing.
Could you tell us a success story with one of your clients?
Yeah, sure. So one example is uh, I've been working with somebody who went to a prestigious university in the U.S. and then went on to study law and work in a law firm and prestigious law firm, et cetera, et cetera. And I, you know, we got her through all of the hurdles, the exams and then the entrance exams and everything like that. So, confident stuff. But I remember recently, or maybe it was last year, she was like, "Oh my God, like I'm really struggling at work. So here she got everything she wanted, got everything she planned for, just like me, right? Ticked all the boxes and she's miserable, right? Well, why? Because she's like, I have to control everything at work, right? And control and control and control, and it's exhausting. And I'm like, well, okay, let's explore that. What's the origin story of this need for control? And it turned out the origin story was her being the eldest sibling, and there's lots of studies around this now, that it's called eldest sibling syndrome, where she, at a certain point in her life, she was 9 or 10, had to take control of the whole family because she thought that was her duty. She thought she had to take control of the siblings and even her parents.
Mm-hmm.
So here is a very bright 20 something year old, right? Who is got everything she wanted so far, but is breaking, literally in pain, because she has taken on this all of this responsibility at work and can't let go and is in control and all this stuff. And it turns out the origin story is from 15 years ago, right? So once she discovered that the origin story was from that era and not today, because she lives in a high-paced city and
Yeah.
in a um, she literally let it go. She said the next day her body was in pain as it let go of all
Yes.
that energy and all
Yeah.
that tension.
Oh my God.
So that's the kind of work that I do is um well, yeah, just discovering who you really are, eliminating those stories that you might not even know you're playing the conditioning, right?
Yeah.
Today. That's old. It's old. It's a remnant from the past. But again, because of the world we live in, the fast paced and all that stuff, we don't realize it. So that happens a lot to me. That happened yesterday or 2 days ago with someone who felt was told he would never be successful, and now he's now he is really successful, but he's still struggling with that idea of I'm not successful, so I'm stressing out about the next thing. I'm like, well, hold on, where'd that come from? Like, oh, and the light goes on, and when the light goes on, you can decide: are you
Yes.
still going to play in that space, or are
Yeah.
you going to discard it?
Right.
And more often than not, we discard it.
Definitely.
And
Because we see that it no longer serves us. It never did
yeah,
serve us.
never did. Well, maybe for a period, right? Way back when. It was a
That's
coping
true.
mechanism,
It was a
right?
coping mechanism. Yes.
Of often it was a coping mechanism of a child or a young adult.
Very true.
And uh and that's and at that time, that's all we knew. That's the only way we knew how to operate, right?
Right.
So
That's
um
that's what kept us in survival mode.
yeah, exactly. But we're here now, so we can have a different story and different conditioning, and maybe we don't need to be in survival mode. So those are the sorts of things that happen to me a lot every day.
Oh, this is beautiful and it's grounding because it also helps you rediscover parts of yourself that you didn't know that you could give to others. When you release someone else's stagnant energy, you're also releasing whatever has been stagnant in you or a memory that you once had. And in doing that, you're rediscovering parts of yourself that you didn't even know you had in
Mhm.
helping others um challenge the intertwined energy within themselves and to bring it forth, bring it present, be aware of it, observe it, let it go. And it makes you stronger and it makes them stronger. And it's really a gift that you're both giving to each other.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I totally agree with you. I feel as elated working with people as maybe they do. It replenishes my fuel cells for sure, 100%.
Well, Colin, thank you for replenishing my cells and
Ah,
my fuel and
oh my
filling up
gosh.
my gas tank. I really, or should I just say we're more of a hybrid at the moment? Thanks for Yeah, I love this. This is really
Sounds good.
incredible. How can our viewers, our watchers, and our listeners find you, and how can they get a
You
hold
know,
of
I'm on Instagram, Colin Kingsmill, pretty easy to find, or my website, colinkingsmill.com, but that's it. If they want to, that's where I am at.
Excellent. So I'm going to conclude this with a poem that I wrote dedicated to this connection and this episode and
Oh
our
gosh.
energy. Great.
Uh-oh. Great.
Uh-oh, here it goes. It's
Haha.
it's called Discovering Self.
Mm.
In rediscovering self, I had to tear walls down. I had to drown a few times and resuscitate myself over and over again. In rediscovering self, I released fears, I released tears, and embraced all the years over and over again. In remembering who I am, I learned to smile again, and laugh, and cry again, and love again, and love again. In this newfound integrity of being me, I am set free, knowing that it's all been worth it again and again. And I am set free to be me. And that's it.
Ah, I love that. That's beautiful. Can you send that to me? I just, that's beautiful. Wow. I love it.
I can
Remember who
definitely
you
send
are.
that to you. Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Remember who you are and be free. That's beautiful. That's,
Absolutely. Well, you
you
definitely helped me
encapsulated.
remember who I am, and I'm just really grateful for this exchange, even equal exchange that we've given the opportunity to really indulge in right here. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I
Well,
look forward to
I'll come
keeping in
back.
touch. What's that?
I'll come back anytime. Yeah.
Oh,
Let's
I'd
do
love to
this
have you
again.
back. You're welcome back
Yeah.
anytime, Colin.
All right. Good. Good. Let's
Maybe
make
one
this
day I'll go visit you in Canada. I've never been to Canada. I'd love to go.
well, it's snowing today,
Oh
so
man. Oh wow.
it's like
Holy moly.
it's spring kind of like shone for a day, and then this morning it was hail and snow, and the power went out, and now it's still snowing. So yeah, come in September when the leaves are when the leaves have changed color, and it's, you know, we're just above Vermont and Maine, so it's
Oh,
pretty
beautiful.
spectacular.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Colin Kingsmill, everybody on A Little Less Fear podcast. What an honor to connect with you again. Wishing you and your loved ones an incredible year.
Thanks, Lena.